Happy Mars Day, Collective. Hope everyone's making through this last week before Christmas all right. Um, so I don't have a video plan for today. I had to get on and share this with you all because um, I talk a lot about the sometimes when the energy feels difficult and you have to really like pull from deep within you to get yourself going and to choose your attitude for that day and to like um, use everything that you have to create your own little piece of joy in whatever way you know how, even if just for that day, like the importance of the process. And so today was one of those days for me. It's just been a challenging week in a way that I don't think is unique to me, but because we all have our own little like uh, pocket worlds that we live in, yet are subjected to these collective energies that I've mentioned before, I think are the reason they are leaving us in a place of discomfort is because we're being asked to um, almost see things in a different way for our own betterment, our own personal evolution, our own ability to sort of enter into this next era that we're all going to need to be a part of and sort of stand in our own authority in who we are, asserting our individuality within the collective, and bringing that energy in its wholeness, and self-sufficiency so that we can make meaningful connections out into the world, because we're going to need one another. I've said before, I really see the future as being one of interdependency, and the only way that that's really going to happen is if we sort of are pushed out of our comfort zones or zones of inertia, and sort of go through that process internally of standing in our own authority, and not worrying about what the world tells us about who we are, just doing the uncomfortable thing and like being who you are alone and walking the walk alone sometimes. And then almost when you surrender to that process, the universe has this like really funny way of delivering certain things to you in unexpected places, or like putting you in certain places at the right times, at the last time that you're looking, um, to receive some sort of message from the universe. But here I am again, humbled, because I've talked about in other videos, like my getting in the spirit with my plant haul video that at the beginning of December, how waking up and really seeing that as a day to where I was going to have to like really piece together joy for myself, and then just let that snowball, and really choose the attitude, and how it did, how just that simple act of going to the garden center and like putting me in a happy state of mind, and then building, sort of getting lost in my world of creativity, how the effect of that was compounding upon itself all day. And then when I get home, I had that little present on my door from a neighbor, who presumably would have done that regardless that day, or not. I don't know. It's just that when I got home, it was just like, wow, can this day get any better? And it did. And it was like these little things sprinkled along the way when you need them most. And it has not um, failed to amaze me at very specific key times this year. And today was one of them. I woke up and I woke up later than I wanted to. And like, so right away, I'm just like, oh. And then one of my dogs, the older dog Bear that I've talked about, who's blind, and she's got her, like, she's up there in age and she requires a lot of work. And so, she had like pooped inside, like while I was in the middle of trying to like make my breakfast. And, I just didn't want to get mad at her because she's old. And like, I stopped what I was doing and cleaned up. And it was just like this sort of like test over and over to really see how committed I was to this attitude. And I was like, just sitting there, I felt like, especially after I ate, and trying to choose my attitude and wondering like what kind of day this was going to be. And so, um, I texted my cousin, and I was just like saying how, yeah, I'm actually like in the middle of making a list. I'm making myself make a list for some things to get at the store, to like do some baking and some cooking for the holiday. and things. So like no one's making me do anything. I just like had decided that I wanted to do these things. And then of course every day my mood kind of ebbs and flows, and I'm like um fighting to like get the motivation to do these things because I know that they'll put me in that good creative space. But it's almost like mustering that thing that you need to go and get the stuff at the store, and then to like remind yourself that this is like a happy thing, this is a creative thing, and to not let the feelings that have nothing to do with your creative space, like and joy of cooking and creating and doing fun little things that you plan on giving to people for the holidays, which makes you happy, because it's like an expression of joy that you then get to share with others. So I really leaned into that and was like, don't cheat yourself of the thing that you know you want to do. So I made the list, and I was texting my cousin. I was like, yeah, I'm making myself make this list today, and then I'm going to make myself go to the grocery store. And I texted him how I set the tone right, my attitude, by lighting this candle that he had gotten for me. And I don't know if you've noticed this candle before on this channel, but it's got a lot of significance for me. It's called Clementine Evergreen, and it's by Village Candles, so it's not like a big candle brand, but I get it at the grocery store actually. And I had started buying this exact candle like over a year ago, like 2 years ago, I think, when I first found it. And it was just sort of like my magic feeling candle in the kitchen. I like it for the kitchen because it's not one of those scents that's like interferes with like the smell of food, and some of the more potent ones that smell really good in other rooms, you don't want that smell to be like in your kitchen, if that makes sense. So this Clementine Evergreen, it's like just fresh. I mean, the name like says it all. It definitely is true to its name. And I like that it's from the store, so it's not like very expensive, and it like has, it's double wick, it has a pretty good burn time. So, my cousin, anyone that else that's come and like sat at this kitchen counter and watched me do things, the Clementine Evergreen candle is always lit. But then, at the beginning of this year, when like things blew up and like, I got really just trying to hold on to like not dropping the ball and like not slipping into deep depression to where everything just like all the momentum I had creatively just like fell to the wayside. All that was in danger of happening. And so, including little joys like this, like burning the candle and not worrying about like, oh, is this costing money that like I shouldn't be spending, like I can't replace the candle as often as I used to, because my mind started to do that, like started to want to slip into this like lack mentality of um denying myself these joys that aren't extravagant to begin with, but that I knew contributed significantly to my creative process, and like just the ambiance, the feeling, the smell, the multi-sensory feeling that like I create, not just for me, but for anyone that comes into my house that I love. And so my cousin, who showed up in a lot of ways, but in just that really small way, like at the beginning of this year, he was like, no, we're gonna burn this candle, whatever it was I had left of the one that I had at the time. And he was like, because we're gonna get another one, we're gonna go to the store while I'm here, we're gonna get another one. And in sort of that like spirit of letting myself let people help me. I didn't argue with him, but I, told him, of course you don't have to. I realized there was no point in saying all that. So he got one. And so when he recently visited me, did the same thing. Like, it's getting down to I was still burning the one he bought me at the beginning of this year, just like savoring it. And he's like, well, we're going to buy another one while I'm here. So we did. And so I'm saying all that because this is the new one that he got. And I just started burning it today. And I shared with him today. I was like, and I'm setting the tone right by burning this candle. And so he's like, yeah, that's right. And so I go to the store, and I'm like going to gather these supplies. And I'm in the produce section. I'm towards the beginning of my excursion at the store. I'm in the produce section, and then like there's not that many people there shopping really at that point, because it's like at that point like an hour before everyone like gets home from work and that crowd starts. And I saw these two people standing there, and one of them, uh, she was like looking. I think she was looking at like some list on her phone or something. She was like, they were talking about like sprouts, referring to a list and how they needed sprouts, and like they were looking and they didn't see. And I was just I happened to be looking, near them in the same refrigerated section in the produce section. I was like buying some herbs, some herbs that would supplement the ones that I already have for some of this cooking I was about to do. And then my eye just caught, this bag of sprouts. And so it seemed like they weren't accustomed to buying them before. So they didn't like quite know where to look. And I was like, oh, there's some sprouts right there. And they looked at me like, oh, okay, great. And like, they're like, oh, I've never seen these before, and picked them. She was grateful. And I I don't know what I said, but I started talking about like, yeah, it's not something I buy very often. I've only actually really had them in one context, and it was when I had learned something from a restaurant that I had visited, sort of like a brunch place actually, and they had served like this open face type breakfast sandwich with like a really good piece of bread or toast and like over medium egg with like sliced tomatoes and like a handful of sprouts at the top, and I really noticed that, and I thought, oh, I'm going to do that at home, because it's like not only did it add like a really nice texture, but you were like, wow, this is like a good way to get in some greens at the beginning of the day and add texture um, in a way that like I hadn't thought of. So the couple times I have bought sprouts, it was to do that. So there's a tip for you if you really want to have something that feels really healthy, um, and that's really pretty. It adds like to the dimension of just like, you could either have a piece of toast with egg, or you could have a piece of toast with like some really nice butter smeared on it and broiled, and like have your egg just the way you like it on top, and have like really delicious sliced tomatoes, and put your salt and pepper, and then top the whole thing off with like a bunch of alfalfa sprouts, and before you know it, you've created something really beautiful actually, and it presents really well, and you've not only got your eggs and toast, but you got some tomatoes and sprouts in there too at the beginning of the day. So I'm just like saying all this, nobody really asked me for all that, but um of course the thing that I really appreciated was that like it occurred to me that these two people were like engaged in what I was sharing, and like like I don't know why, but I just really appreciated the fact that these two people that like I inserted myself into their interaction just real quick, trying to help, and like for all I knew they would just move on and like go on about their shopping. And then she looked at me, she was like, are you a chef? And I was like, no, definitely. I was like, not really. And she's like, come on, like, are you a chef? And so I said, well, no, not professionally. I've just been cooking my entire life. She was like, you know too much. And um, it occurred to me, I was like, I guess I really take for granted the skill set that I have, which is thanks to, having a grandmother, like having my grandparents have a strong hand in raising me, and therefore being around them all the time, being around my grandma who cooked, and like starting from such a young age, and then just like never abandoning it, just building slowly upon all the pieces throughout the course of my whole life. And so I stood back and I'm like, well, I mean, I guess I am a chef, just not professionally. And so um, it was funny because she was like, are you in social media, or do you have, are you on TikTok? And I said, well, no, I just recently started a YouTube channel. And, I know that she was probably expecting like, some big channel to where it's like, oh, the truth comes out. Here you are cooking on camera and you're saying you're not a chef. But I was like, really, believe it or not, this channel just started and was like a product of like a really like a time of despair. Like it's like this, not just about cooking, but I talk about astrology, and right when I said that, she was like, oh my gosh, she's like, I was just listening to my podcast. She had this podcast that she liked to listen to, and she's talking about, yeah, like my podcast on Scorpio, like I'm a Scorpio. And then so then of course we're just like diving head first, like here we all are just standing in the middle of the vegetable section, and she's got her sprouts and her stuff, and I've got my other stuff. And now we're like talking about her friend, he started talking about the dream world, and it just like made sense. Everyone's like buzzing about as if we were these three friends that had just caught up after not catching each other for a while. And it occurred to me, um, that this is exactly the interaction that I needed to have out in the world with two people I had never met before, especially when, I'm not going to go totally into it because I think I'll just save that for therapy. Like the way my mind was just really working hard to challenge my commitment to that Four of Swords that I talked about in the last video, that Four of Swords mental stability, how much active effort it's taken on my part to maintain it, and to not turn on myself, to remind myself every day, do those creative things. They will make you happy. The process is important. And so how the fact that I almost didn't go to the store, and how I had to do all these things to build myself up before I went. And the fact that I went and I wasn't really in a conversational mood at all. Like, it just, these two people were looking for the sprouts I happen to see. So I'm just that person. I'm just going to say, oh, it's right there. And how, 5 minutes into the interaction, like, these two people that didn't know me at all and that could easily have just like, gone on about their business, expressed this interest in what I was saying, just by virtue of the fact that we all seem to share this like fascination with food and like the things you can create with it. And using these sprouts, using these in a new way. And it seemed like she was also creating something that she hadn't used before, because she's like, I've never had to look for sprouts. So um, it was just, it took like a couple minutes, and she's like, well, what's your YouTube channel? And she hands me her phone, and I'm like typing it in, and it was just like without skipping a beat. She's like, I want to subscribe. And then her friend, like, you know, who has started talking about the dream world, and told me he was a Sagittarius and how he loves Christmas season. And I'm just sitting there like nodding, an astrologer, like, yep, that checks out. Yep, that's Jupiter right there. And so we just stood there and we talked for a really long time. Like, at a certain point, I'm like, I hope I'm not interrupting anybody's like flow over here. But I just really, that interaction built me up so much. And I don't know if those two people who both subscribe to my channel, just standing in the middle of the produce aisle, if you're watching, you guys did a lot of heavy lifting for me today. And it's hard for me to express it without sounding like kind of like corny about it. But um, you know, one of y'all even said, I think maybe both of you, in a more or less words, like, it's funny how the universe will just like put people in your periphery, or like make you run across certain people, or put people on your path, or whatever, put people at the same place as you at just the right time. And so I was like, you have no idea. I mean, the fact that that was offered by them in this interaction, and this is like all I'm thinking the whole time, and it just really sort of reinforced my understanding of like how we're all like fighting this like battle, and we're all three different people, so it's like three different battles, but yet that sentiment seemed to resonate so profoundly with each of us in a way that I don't even think we had time to get into on each of our individual stories about why that that interaction seems so serendipitous. And it's like, talk about being on brand with this channel. It's like, if you ever want a reason to remind yourself of the value of like getting your hands on your own food and preparing it, which requires you to shop the produce section at the store, let this be your reminder that it's always in the least expected places that you will have just the right interaction that will, I don't know, give you that like mental sort of that affirmation that you needed, that you didn't know you needed, or somehow you felt this longing or like this questioning of yourself, and the meaningfulness of what you do and what you think you're about. um, Sometimes it takes people that you don't even know to remind you. And it's different than externalizing your value. Like, it's different than like, how many likes I got, or it's different from that kind of external validation. It's like these people weren't even trying to give me validation, but yet they did in a way that nobody else could have. And if I know you, like, I love you, I appreciate you. So it doesn't mean to discount that sort of support that the people I do know give me in their own ways that they know. But I was once again reminded how I will never not be amazed and be humbled by the kindness, but also the potential of individual people over institutions any day. And I've said this in another video, how um, my biggest change and shift in view of the world, or I guess over just the last few years, to be honest, was um, I now have an evergreen uh, level of faith in people as individuals, in the collective, in our ability to sort of like show up for one another in ways that we don't even like, aren't even trying, but just by being ourselves in the spaces that we find ourselves in, just in the mundane way at the grocery store. There's nothing more mundane than the produce section at the grocery store. But bringing all of yourself to even the most mundane activity, the most mundane outing, and not being afraid to assert your individuality in as part of the whole, as no more or no less than anyone else, can yield some like really rewarding moments. It's like where all the richness, in my opinion, of life happens. So, to the two of you, I appreciate you so much just in the interaction. And then I, appreciate even more that you just busted out your phones and like that here, type in your YouTube channel and just subscribed. It was just very, it made my day. It might have made my month. I don't know. And it's the top tier public interaction with people I've never met before, probably all year. So uh, just know that. Just know that your whatever it is that you're creating with your alfalfa sprouts, I'm sure it'll be great because there is some sort of magic, as childlike as it sounds, but I don't even care how it sounds. I truly believe that the intention, especially with food, like when you have those sort of serendipitous moments and you sort of like, it brings out that like childlike wonder, that awe in like the way the universe works. And then that is transferred into the food and then you're preparing it. That is the difference between like throwing things in a pot, putting them on a plate, and like a story of just the right type of interaction at just the right time, at just an overall difficult collective, emotionally difficult for the collective time that I think we're all sort of like navigating. Um, that's the difference between something ordinary and something truly magical. So I hope your dish turns out great. I encourage you to keep posting your food pictures because what I saw that you created um, before was really magical, and to lean into that childlike creativity, like looking at the colors and marveling at the beauty of the thing that you create and then eat. That is a beauty ritual right there. Right there. Don't forget it. So I love you guys. I appreciate you. And to everyone else watching, don't don't give up on yourself, but definitely don't give up in the collective, especially in the people you've never met. There are all kinds of people out there that you were supposed to meet, even if just briefly, and you move on. Um, don't forget about that because we're all going to need each other. And I wish for anyone watching a moment like that for you sometime in the near future. On that note, I'm going to continue with my little organizing my supplies. I got some baking things and some other things, and I don't want to say them in case anyone that's going to receive some of this stuff is watching. So stay tuned. Check in sometime. I'm going to try to check in before Christmas or something. Anyways, have a good one. Till next time.